who is, thank you, Cindy. Yes, I have to say that we are recording it because of course, we want to be able to let it be seen by other people later on. So I press got it. Yeah, just I mean, I know that you're all guild members, so you all know how brilliant the guild is, and obviously it's been difficult recently because we haven't been able to have any live events. So we wanted to make sure we had as many virtual events as possible, so we can actually, you know, enjoy ourselves and talk about stuff, and have a little bit of the kind of atmosphere that the guild does so well. To introduce myself, for those of you who don't know me, I am Jacqui Thornton. I'm a freelance journalist for The Lancet and the BMJ, and I'm a guild committee member. So I'm going to be moderating the session today. Yeah, Helen, it's great that Helen is with us because Helen is actually in Sydney, and so she's got up extremely early to come and talk to us about her latest book. This is called The Macro Method, the science-backed approach lasting weight loss, and she wrote this with Angela Dowden. This was published in June last year by Aster. So basically, Helen is going to very kindly talk to us about the book, how it's put together, and subject matter. And then we're going to be having a reading from her later on, and then there's time for questions. So that's fantastic. Helen, how are you feeling now that you are up so early in the morning? I know you've had on your second coffee.
I'm on my second tea, so
fair enough.
I am fueled.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, put makeup on at 6:15 in the morning. It's not something I normally do, I must admit. So.
Okay. Look, I just wanted to start off because I mean, you know, you're coming to us from Australia. We're here in the UK, but I think that putting the book together was even more of an international exercise. Do you want to explain how the logistics were of how it managed to be put together?
Yeah. So basically, for some reason, and I still don't know why, because I never asked them, Aster dropped me an email and said, do you want to write a book on macros? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then most of the diet books I've done solo, even sort of just because that's been, they said, we want to work with a dietitian. I was like, okay, yeah, I know lots. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, right, because at this time of year, which is when the book was written, it was written pretty much a year ago. I think we delivered about a year ago today. And I was thinking, right, I've got an hour of the day where I can work. So I can only work up to 9 p.m. my time, which is 10 a.m. yours. And I was like, right, I mean, that requires a very understanding expert. And then I'm sitting in a restaurant at lunchtime trying to think who I'm going to approach. And Angela pops up on my Facebook feed. And I was like, aha. A, I really like Angela. B, obviously she's got the qualifications. C, I know she's fast. D, she's in LA. Which means our time zones work really, really well together. So I would wake up in the morning and she would already have done what she needed to do that day. I would then check it, send it back. And we had about 4 or 5 hours where we could actually communicate in person. So the people who got the raw end of this deal were the publishers, who basically would send us things first thing in the morning. And normally one of us would be awake within a few hours, but it was very much a tag team effort. So whichever one of us got up first and saw it first was the person who answered the questions, or said, that's Helen's department, she'll be up in 2 hours, or what have you. So it was quite an international feat with me here, her in LA, and the publisher in London.
And so how long did it take you working in that kind of tag team effort?
Well, for some reason, every publisher in London thinks I can write a book in 4 weeks. So I think we had 6 weeks to put the whole thing together from the day they asked me to do it to pretty much, well, once the contract was signed, which always takes longer than writing the bloody thing. I think we had 6 weeks to put it together. Wow.
So that seems like record speed a bit, but is that, I mean, what's the fastest one you've ever written?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was, I think, was the alcohol book? Mm. Yeah, I think it was the alcohol book that was done in 4 weeks. But
so, of course, you know, so diet books, I think they are something that, you know, they are huge sellers. There are so many different types of them. You know, what makes yours different, would you say?
Same, different gravy. Basically, this one is different as much as a diet book can be different. They all run the same format. There isn't a way to reinvent the wheel. But macros really, and I know there's 2 people on this call far more qualified than me. macros hadn't really been done in a book format for the lay population. Actually, I'm going to let me state that, because it's been something that's been very, very big in the fitness industry for ages. And it was something that was very much dealt with by app. So it was MyFitnessPal and various other macro apps, but there wasn't really anything that explained to people who didn't have the extra level of nutritional knowledge how to work out your macros. Because basically it's very maths heavy. So you work out this set of numbers that's personalized to you, and then you have to convert that into food. And at that point, you kind of get left on your own with most apps, most websites, most blog entries. Just at this point, go, oh, just enter it all into MyFitnessPal, which works. And MyFitnessPal is a brilliant product. But if you don't know where you're going to get 35 grams of carbohydrate, or 4 grams of carbohydrate, 3 grams of protein, and 1 gram of fat, you're like, and you could literally spend hours trying to balance this stuff out with just an app. So what we wanted to do, and what made this different from a macro book rather than any other diet book, was we gave them the ability to do that quickly and easily. And that's what makes it different as a macro book. For a diet book, as I say, you can't reinvent the wheel. But what this took was something that had been very much used by those with a really good nutrition knowledge into something that people who don't have that could use.
But we were talking earlier, Helen, and you said that you've got to like maths to get on with this system.
Yes.
So
yes.
How easy is it for an ordinary person to actually work out and use?
If you've got the calculator, it's really easy. So basically, macros they're created by your personal body type. So it's age, it's gender, it's fitness level, it's weight, it's height. So you need all of those figures to create them properly. Then you create that into a percentage of fat, carbohydrates, protein. And you determine what that is depending on your body type, what your goal is, whether you know enough about your body to know that you do better with more carbs or more fat, or if that is a trial and error. And working that process out, again, it can be very easy online because you can just do it on a calculator. But when you just look at it, I mean, the equation, if I can find it, is just ridiculous. It is. Sorry, I should really have had a pen on this. Okay, so this is women. BMR equals 10W plus 6.25H minus 5A minus 161. You're like, yeah, what?
Yeah.
So
once you've got the hold of that, once you've got the understanding of it, how then, is there's still the difficulty of working out what bits you need to get from what foods.
Yes, well, that's where, as I say, and that's where normally everything falls down with macros, because you don't know. So we came up with a little handy system, again, really technical, tables. But that's not really done on any other macro thing. So basically, you want to do, I don't know, let's say, well, I'll just do it here. Say you need to find 10 grams of protein, 60 grams of carbs, and 24 grams of fat for your day. You're like, where do I get that? And then you just skim down, and basically we have a handy table that tells you. And that really does make it so much easier. Because, I mean, if I said to anybody other than probably Anita and Jeanette, how'd you do that? You would be, I don't know what's got that in it. I don't know what's got that in it now. I just read a number. So that's made it, it just made it so much easier.
How do you get feedback from, I mean, how do you know how it's going in terms of readers saying, yeah, I finally get it? I mean, I guess you have Amazon reviews.
I haven't had any nasty letters. That's normally a good sign. So normally, because I mean, normally if it doesn't work, you'll get someone emailing, because I mean, I'm pretty easy to find, I've discovered. And then so another book I did, I still get letters. Oh God, that was one of the first books I did. So that was probably 15, 16 years ago. And I'm still getting emails about it. People going, what about this? Can you do that? So the fact that I haven't had any nasty ones going, this is impossible, I think means it works.
Okay. And so obviously there's the logistics issue with the distance, which you said actually works out well because it's LA rather than UK. But what were the other challenges in writing it?
Well, the big one was something we shouldn't have been able to do. The publisher wanted a diet, and the whole point of macros is it's personalised. So we had to come up with a way to create a diet plan that people could follow that was personalised to their bodies. And even now, I still don't quite know how we did it. We realised 2 days before submission date it didn't work. I basically started doing it and throwing in random people like John and Barry, and once I realized that John was 6'4", like 9 stone, like sort of 12 stone, and ran marathons, John suddenly had a lot of maths to do, and we literally had to rewrite the whole thing at the last minute to make it far easier, and create a snack system or an addition system, so that someone who did have to add a lot of food could just pick from a set number of meals. You still have to do a little bit of calculation after that, but it would be a case of adding sort of 2 or 3 small portions of something rather than trying to calculate entire meals. But yeah, that was a bit of a problem, as I say, about two days before, when I just went, this doesn't work. And the other thing is, when you change a macro or change a food in a macro diet, normally when you write a diet, if you decide that someone doesn't want eggs anymore, you do swap it for chicken, and it really doesn't make that much difference to their results. Not with macros. We had a set macro figure that we had to come up with each day, and thankfully Angela did all of this bit. When the publisher basically said, we think there's too many prawns. Now the thing with prawns is they're very high in protein, very low in fat, and very low in carbs. So if you just want to add a protein, you chuck in a prawn. We had a lot of prawns. When they said they didn't want them anymore, to take them out involved basically rewriting the entire day and adding things. But once you started adding things in, we would then realize we had too much chicken, or because there's only so many things you can add in. So yeah, that was another fun thing. But thankfully Angela did the heavy lifting on that part because she had the software. So
good. Yeah, it sounds.
They were the main 2 issues. The fact that, yeah, as I say, you shouldn't be able to write a diet plan for a macros book, and we did it.
So look, what makes you most proud about the book? I mean, obviously, it sounds like a really quick achievement, and getting over those challenges. But
I think the fact that we did make something that is, I mean, it's science. It's a good diet. It's not a fad. It's not anything that's going to go out of fashion, because it is basic nutritional science. And we did make it a lot easier for the majority of people to do. As I say, my mum would just throw it at me. She just wouldn't be able to deal with it at all. I don't think she's even bothered reading this one. But yeah, I think that just basically bringing something that is sensible and scientifically sound and could change a lot of people's relationship with food. Because it does, I know every diet says this, it does teach you to eat normally, even though it's a diet. And I think is quite nice. I mean, I grew up at a point where we were all messed up about food. I've done every diet out there. And this one is the one where you think, actually, do you know what? This would stop a lot of people going off on mad tangents. It can become slightly obsessive, which is one of the downsides of it. You can become a bit obsessed with macros. But I think if you don't go down that route, it's actually pretty sensible, pretty sane, and we've managed to make it easy.
And have you managed to change the way that you eat as a result of writing all of this and studying it so well?
It's made me less neurotic, and it's made me realise, I mean, I've written a lot of diet books, I've tested a lot of diets for things. I know what works for my body, but what works for my body is impossible for me to deal with and stick to. So this, yeah, it's even just tracking it. I'm tracking the macros on MyFitnessPal. I mean, obviously I didn't need the book because I've got a lot of nutritional knowledge anyway. It just does make you realize that you can eat anything and lose weight, and that it's going back to basics, that 99% of diets are calories in versus calories out, no matter how they dress it up. And you can't really get away with that. The only difference is how the calories are made up and whether they suit your body properly, your appetite level, and what have you. And that is a realization for someone who's spent their entire life testing diets and has drunk juice and has done all, I mean, that comes out in a minute when I do the reading. Yeah, so it's nice. It's nice to just feel like, oh, actually, you can just stop stressing about all of this.
And are there any particular types of people you think that it might appeal to? Of maths geniuses?
Maths geniuses.
Yeah.
As I say, people who do want to get off the diet bandwagon, which puts me out of a job in a way, because I kind of rely on the diet bandwagon. But yeah, so if you've done everything and you still don't know why you're still gaining weight, or particularly me, I used to run half marathons until I messed my knee up, and I could never work out why I was still fat. And that the macro, by counting your macros, tracking your macros, you do realize why. Because yes, all of a sudden, all those extra things that you do sort of just funnel past as you go past the bridge do count. And as you do have to be careful not to take it completely the other way and become slightly obsessed, which a lot of people can do when they're macro counting. We developed a rule in the book to try and prevent that. But yeah, I think it can, that type of person, and also exercises. I mean, if you want to exercise and control your weight, not just through exercise, to improve your results, to get a better result from your training, then definitely that. And anybody that's just wants to follow something sensible, but wants to be able to customize it to their body, because I mean, as I say, most diets don't work for me because I know I need more fat to be satisfied and for my body. So yeah, so I think anybody who doesn't mind maths.
Okay, well, let's to give some people a flavour idea. I think you've kindly agreed to give us an excerpt reading. So I think you told me you're going to be reading something from the foreword and a little bit.
Yeah, it's just the introduction and then the first, because I write quite short chapters, so we've had to go over a little bit. Yeah, and then just how sort of macros came to be something we are writing a book about. So yeah, this is the bit I'm dreading because I don't really want to read my own words. Thankfully, I get to read some of Angela's, but and I hate my intro now I've read it. Anyway, I will read and see what happens. So, introduction. Helen says, welcome to the last diet you'll ever need to do. The end to yo-yoing, the end to diets that make you hungry and miserable, and the end to fatty ideas where you don't eat foods with carbs or fats or anything else that's actually good for you. Writing about health for over 20 years means I've tried all those other plans. I've counted calories, I've drunk juice, I've eaten meals consisting mostly of meat, and I've dabbled in vegetarianism. But while most of those were a necessary experiment for work, counting macros, or some people use the phrase if it fits your macros, or what we call the macro method, is the one plan I've chosen to do on my own time. Why? Because most of the other diets made me thinner. Well, except for being a vegetarian, because that was a disaster of epic proportions. Many of them also made me miserable and hungry, or they didn't allow me to live my life in a normal way, which meant that even though I loved some of the results, I had to come off them. The macro method changed that. It's based on the simple fact that every food you eat is made up of a combination of three main ingredients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat, aka the macros. Unless you're on a very restrictive eating regime, your daily diet is already a movable feast of those three things. However, it may not be the right combination or ratio, and that's what macro counting aims to change. Macro counting finds the best mix of protein, carbohydrates, and fat to help your body reach its goal, not the body of someone a foot taller or 15 years younger. And if you want to eat a biscuit or a burger while you do it, that's totally okay. I admit at first I didn't find it an easy diet. There's some maths involved, and that's never been my forte. But once you learn how it works, once you learn the macro breakdowns of your favorite foods or meals, and learn the easiest way to record things, it gets much, much simpler. It's not perfect, and we'll talk about the cons of macro counting in chapter 1, but it comes pretty close. After all, with the macro method, you can eat any food you like, just maybe not quite as much of it as before. It's science, not a miracle. But even with that proviso, I assure you won't be hungry. And most importantly, you'll learn habits that set you up for eating well for life. It sounds good, doesn't it? But don't just take my word for it. Here's my co-author, Angela Dowden, a registered nutritionist, to explain why the macro method ticks all the boxes for her too. Angela. I'll admit to feeling a bit amused and perplexed when I first heard of people counting their macros, and realised that it simply referred to the amounts and ratios of protein, carbohydrate, and fats in people's diet. I was coming to it, however, from the rather nerdy perspective of being a nutrition focused for more than 2 decades. Rapidly dissecting a food label is part of my bag for many of the articles I write. So when it came to dinner in the evening, I didn't want to start number crunching again and couldn't see why anyone else would. But then I realised just how much of that core macronutrient knowledge had seeped permanently into my brain already, and just how useful it was. When speaking with people who've been trying to lose weight or get leaner without success, I heard stories of how getting to grips with macros for the first time was often revelatory and revolutionary. And it makes perfect sense. You may have counted calories all your life and know exactly how many there are in a Mars bar, a G&T, or a banana, but disassociate that knowledge from where those calories come from, and you only have some of the tools you need for shedding kilos effectively and healthily. Counting macros really buys into the crucial concept that a calorie is not just a calorie. In terms of the health effects, your hunger and how satiated you feel, the type and ratio of calories and the protein, carbohydrate, and fat-rich foods they come from is important. Of course, we eat food, not nutrients. So in presenting the macro method, we very much food forward, so that you're not just thinking about your meals as a set of numbers, but also enjoying what you eat. If you've been overly caught up in trying to slash calories or fat and sugar, the macro method will be the answer to helping you enjoy food while still being in control of what you put into your body. So what is the macro method? Macros is the Greek word for large. Nutrients are compounds in foods that your body needs to maintain function and health. Put them together and you have macronutrients, the main sources of fuel your body needs every single day. They're the protein in your meat, fish, eggs, and dairy, the carbohydrates in your bread, pasta, and rice, and sugary treats, and the fat in your avocado, nuts, and oils. Alcohol is also a macronutrient, although maybe not as essential as the others in helping the body thrive. The macro method is a way of determining and tracking the optimum intake of these macronutrients in order to make your goal, whatever your goal may be. It's not a one-size-fits-all diet, though. You have to adapt the rules to fit your body's needs. Even the diet plan in this book will probably need tweaking a little bit for you to use it. In return, though, you'll be able to lose weight without deprivation, eating foods you enjoy, and learn the skills you need to keep off for life. No wonder it's often suggested that macro counting is the healthiest diet you can follow. But before we get to that, let's find out how we discovered this wonder diet. And for that, we can thank bodybuilders, influencers, and nerds. I'll do one more tiny paragraph. So how did macro counting become popular? Macronutrients are not new. They're the very basis of the science of nutrition, and we've been talking about their role in health for over 100 years. Macro counting as a way of weight control, however, only really emerged thanks to the bodybuilding community of the 1980s. Bodybuilders have a very specific goal. They need to build muscle while stripping fat. A number of top competitors in the field realized that this took more than just watching their calories to achieve, started looking at how controlling the macros in the diet more precisely affected the results. Over the next 2 decades, macro counting became a bit of an open secret in the fitness community, evolving from just a way for people to get bigger into a solution for those wanting to fine-tune their diets in lots of ways. Around 2010, it became easier for the average person to practice the idea. This is when wellness technology really started to expand. The first fitness tracker, the Fitbit, became popular. Smartphones gave us a mini computer in our pocket, and the launch of an app called MyFitnessPal made it possible to log calories and how they were made up in seconds. While at this point, most people were still concerned more with calories than macros, thanks to plans like Atkins and South Beach, the awareness had developed that food was some of its parts rather than a single entity, and those parts affected bodies in different ways. That was the beginning of the mainstream macro movement. And I'll leave out a bit about influences. So there you go. That was
Great.
That was
Great, thank you, Helen. That was really, really interesting. And I think, particularly that last bit was talking about how we've got this computer in our pocket and in our phones, and this enables the macro method to be utilised maybe much easier than it had been historically. So obviously you mentioned that you've done diet books in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, when you said that, the publisher rang you up and said, "Oh, we would like you to do this," that sounds like a dream for many health writers. And I know that part of the reason we have these book events is because we want to give advice on people to get a book deal. So, I mean, that's great for you to be in that wanted position. How did it all start initially? How did you get your first book deal, and how did you get your first agent?
Well, the first book deal, I mean, all of mine have basically fallen into my lap. It's been, someone has been wanting to write a book on a subject and has seen an article I've written on it in something else. And then they've basically asked me, that was the first, no, actually, no, that's a lie. The first book I ever wrote was a self-help book, which I would forget about. And that came about because someone else didn't want to do it. The lovely Maureen Rice, I think many of you know, and said, I know who can do this, and recommended me. But all the others have been because they've seen an article that I've written on that they have then gone, actually, do you know what? We quite fancy doing this. And again, friends suggesting it. So somebody knew that I was dabbling in keto quite some time ago, before keto became quite as big as it is now. Bridget Moss, in fact, and had a conversation with a publisher who had said something about fat, and Bridget had said, I know, you need to talk if you're looking for a book for that. Then to me and Zana Morris from the library, I think again many of you might know, wrote one of the first books on keto that came out. So unfortunately, I've been super lucky. So I suppose my best advice would be, tell everybody whatever mad diet you're doing. Make sure you write loads and loads of articles on lots and lots of different things, and sort of just make yourself available. The first time I got an agent was High Fat, and again we had a contract in place, so that made it a lot easier. because we just went and said, we've got this contract, we don't know if it's right. And so that was how I got the agent, and that was thanks to PTB. So I suppose share knowledge between us all, because I mean, everything I've got has pretty much come because someone else has gone, oh yeah, you need that one, you need her. And now I think, again, the fact that people know that I can write a book really fast basically means I don't know whether everyone else has turned them all down by the time I get them, or what it is. But yeah, I have a reputation of being able to be the one that goes, do you know what, we decided we need to do something on this trend and we need it quick. And so yes, and try and look ahead. I mean, I do pitch the odd one. Some of them have come to stuff and some of them haven't. But yeah, I tend to often be too ahead. So.
Good. Okay. Well, that sounds like a wonderful position to be in, Helen. But let me throw the questions open now, the floor to the audience. I'm sure that people would like to get the benefit of your knowledge. I've got Liza wants to come in. Please, Liza, thanks for your question. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. This is so interesting. Thank you for doing this event. I actually have two questions. The first one is, you mentioned that, you know, this is under the category of a diet book, when in fact, it's really not a diet. It's really about education. And I don't think that's what anybody in the food or the gym industry wants to hear. Like, listen, everybody, if you were taught this in school, you'd never, you know, have need for a diet or anything else. It seems kind of like, you know, there's a huge emphasis right now on prevention of getting into the state of having to be on a traditional diet. So I just wonder what you think about the role of, you know, a book such as yours on macros. I guess it wouldn't be as much of a sexy sell if we were just about prevention, you know. It's kind of like everybody's looking for a fix, and ideally a quick fix. So kind of where's the balance, do you feel, being so immersed in this, between the fix it culture that we have versus do it right the first time with prevention?
Well, you said it yourself, prevention doesn't sell. It's something I still haven't, I know this is a soapbox and I don't know where I stand on it right now. And by that, I mean, every time you change your eating, to me, is a diet. And as I say, I don't know where my soapbox is going with this, because I get really angry when people say, oh, it's not a diet, it's a way of life. Because to me, pretty much everything where you change if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it is a duck. And I understand where you're coming from as well. But as I say, a book publisher's job is to sell books. And if you try and sell a book that says we're going to teach you something, no one's going to buy it. So I understand where they're coming from, but I also get your point. And yeah, it would be very nice if we all did learn this all at school and understood it and fell off and stopped all of the stuff about food. But then I also have issues with the whole, you can be any size you want to be and be healthy, because I mean, I've spoken to the guy who came up with the concept of the obesity paradox, and even he says it doesn't work under 50. So I have the same feelings as you about it, in that I can't answer your question because I still don't know where I stand on it, to be perfectly honest with you.
But Helen, tell me, do you ever, on the publication of your books, go and get asked to talk to educational establishments, or you know?
No, because I wouldn't do it, because I don't have that qualification.
Right.
I am a writer, and particularly this one, because of the type of book it was very important that I did work with someone that has a nutritional qualification. Because I mean, I can write a simple balanced plan, but this was far more complicated than that. So I wouldn't see myself as that kind of expert. And as I tend, this is very rare for me to do something like this, I tend to very much fly below the radar, and try and I'm normally the story, but for some reasons I need to become a little bit more high profile than I want to be. right now, which is why I'm doing things like this. So yeah, no, I wouldn't. That wouldn't be something I would feel qualified to do.
Liza, you said you had 2 questions. The other one.
Thank you very much. So I wonder, and it might, other people may have a comment on this as well. I understand, again, it's kind of along the themes of what we just talked about, you know, what's sellable. So it's veganuary here. I live in Edinburgh, even though I'm American, and I've been a vegetarian since 2014. I was vegan for 6 months, never felt better 6 months, but I don't believe life is meant to be lived without cheese or ice cream. So I'm vegetarian. And Waitrose got rid of all the normal staples in the frozen vegetarian section and stuck the freezer full of 2 brands, Linda McCartney and something called Plant Life. And both of them are filled with soy products, which I don't tolerate. So what I have seen, and I'm sure it's about making as much money as you can, is let's turn vegan into, let's appeal to meat eaters rather than, so this whole thing about, again, it's education, because there's a perception, I think, among the public that vegan means no meat. So what they're doing is they're marketing to people who like meat with all the fake products that I couldn't even eat one because the beet juice came out. It reminded me of blood. But it's the difference between, you know, eating more plant-based food versus let's appeal to meat eaters and make all this fake stuff to move them over here. So I'd like to know where, if you have noticed that, because I mean, I can see it in the Waitrose freezer section. They're appealing to meat eaters, not to the vegetarian or vegans. And I just wonder if that's an example of, there's a continuum, and the public right now in the UK is so far into the meat, and they talk about the obesity, you know, not pandemic, but epidemic, that we just need to kind of move them in steps. I mean,
Helen, what's your thoughts on that, Helen?
Can I say that 100%?
Oh,
pardon?
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say I agree with that 100% about the meat, the products looking like meat, and they're so off-putting, and I don't eat meat either. And there's just a lack of vegetarian products that are actually made of proper alternatives, vegetarian alternatives. It's just this whole looking like meat thing, and it's, yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's it. That's all I want to say.
But there again, that was what turned my boyfriend vegetarian. So when I talk about in the book, when I tried vegetarianism, I started it first because I'd read Michael Greger's book, and he was talking about how plant-based is the healthiest diet and blah, blah, blah. And so I actually I gave it a try, and I was doing it on my own, and it was great because it was vegetables and beans and all those things. Then him in the other room, who's not up yet, basically decided he was going to join in, and the house became full of corn gourmet burgers and basically all the stuff you're talking about, because he won't replace meat with beans. He just won't. It's not but he would replace it with a corn burger or an Impossible burger or a Beyond Meat or Plant Life or whatever you call it, because that to him, it wasn't changing his diet enough. And he's the cook in my house. I don't cook, my boyfriend cooks, but that allowed him to eat foods that he was used to eating in the way that he was used to eating it. He doesn't see beans as a protein. Get me started. So for people like him, then I get the point. But I mean, again, that was when it went. I had started losing weight and felt great, and then put all this crap back in, and it just went horribly wrong. And so we stopped. But he was still now. He was replacing at one point burgers with corn burgers, because he actually decided they were nicer, and because the texture was like meat. He was quite happy with that. But he wouldn't. If I made him a bean burger, he'd be just like, no, I'm not eating that. So I think there's a place for it, but I don't know whether it's a healthy place.
So I think Liza, what you're saying is that, you know, basically what's happening in Waitrose is they're replacing one whole section with another, and there's no different options, and maybe that's where the extreme situation is happening, certainly in the UK at the moment.
I think the press is in a position to lead this and to say, being vegan or vegetarian isn't just about, substitutes. Let's talk about what it is. I mean, you can eat mashed potatoes and, crisps all day and claim you're a vegetarian, but, you're going to be in the A&E in a few years.
Yeah.
My best friend does that. He has been vegetarian as long as we've known him. His diet is basically just mashed potatoes, crisps, and sherbet sweets. How he's still alive is beyond me.
So let me bring in does anyone else have any questions on this topic, or on back to macros and back to Helen's book, or about writing and being an author? Let me bring in any other questions from the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I got one. I'm not a maths person, but I'm always very interested in diets and things. I mean, this sounds like really complicated. So how do you pitch it to magazines and people that you want to write about your book? I mean, do you say, this is some secret calculation that all dietitians know, and now we've got the secret and you can share that with your readers? Is that the way you go into it, or how do you do that?
How did I do it? Most of it was just explaining, because as I say, it's very difficult to write as a feature. It would be easy for someone like Louise to extract it for the mail, because you need space, and that's been the biggest problem with trying to get it in things, because to do that calculation you've got to explain it, and that takes up about 300 words of boredom. So it has been quite hard to sort of cover it in that way, because to get people to work it out it is going to be 6 pages of maths. So what I've done,
is there any sort of online tool that you can use to calculate it? So you can do it that way. If you were doing it online, you could
and your percentages online, but quite easily. Again, it's very, very boring URL. But so you can just do it that way, and then but the thing that makes us different is these tables at the back that allow you to find everything quite easily.
And are they a bit like the things you get from slimming clubs and things, where they'll give you an index and you can find out how many carbs or whatever?
It's just a nutritional breakdown, so basically without the calories on it. So it's like Greek yogurt, for example. Greek yogurt seems to be asked to fill any hole in a diet. It's like protein 4 grams, carbs 8 grams, fat 24 grams. That's probably not it at all, but so basically if you need to find 4 grams of carbs, you basically go down and find all the things that have got 4 grams of carbs in them, and then go, okay, right, so I also need you wouldn't actually do it that way around, it's a bad example, but anyway, I also need 65 grams of protein. That one's got 62 grams of protein, that fits my box, tick, add that to your diet. That's a simple way of saying how it works.
But Helen, if you're doing a recipe, say, how can you? I mean, I think this is what I would need: is recipes making up those percentages, because it's all about saying, I'll have some yogurt, which is getting some amount of carbohydrate. But if you doing a pasta dish with it, right? We
say basically when you first start this, you probably keep everything very, very simple. So it's very much meat and 2 veg. We've got a lot of recipes in the book because, as I say, Angela had the software to calculate them all. So we do have macro counted recipes in the book. But it's basically try and keep things very simple to start with until you understand what you're doing. And that's is one of the pitfalls. As I said, there are many cons to the macro method or to counting macros. One of which is when you see people online with their food prep, they're eating the same meal day in, day out, day in, day out, because they've got those numbers ready. And people do just fall into chicken and salad, fish and salad, chicken and salad, fish and salad. And that's one of the biggest problems. We called it falling into a macro rut, where you just repeat the same meals over and over and over again, which is one reason why, even though I say it was hard to write a diet, we've actually given at least a big variety of foods, a big variety of day plans that they can work to their own body. Which probably makes it a lot more varied than a lot of other people online, perhaps, who are going, oh yeah, I'm doing macros. And I mean, just literally sitting there in front of 12 tubs of the same meal, which I've seen quite a lot with influencers. Is my meal prep for the week. And you're like, you're just eating the same foods over and over and over and over again. Yes, they're very healthy foods, but you're still not getting 30 plant foods a week, for example, or the Tim Spector school of what we need now. I don't even know where the question was there, but or whether I answered it.
Joe, is that answered your question?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think maybe it's something that lends itself to an online article, because you could kind of lead people into a sort of online calculator to, if you wanted to get around the difficult maths bit of it.
I don't know whether it ever went on, and I think we did have that on there.
Oh, right.
But I don't know whether it ever went live. So.
Has it been serialised by the Mail, Helen? You mentioned about the Mail. The Mail.
No, it wasn't. I think probably because it was quite complicated. Also, it didn't really come out at a diety time of year. So no, who did it? The Telegraph. Telegraph did it. So.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Has anyone got any questions on the kind of nuts and bolts of getting a book out? And I mean, how many polished authors have we got on the call? Hands up. Joe, you've written. You've written. So
yeah, I can never make any money out of them. I don't know where I go wrong.
No, I don't make a huge amount, to be honest. But there are different advantages to me for writing a book, because, as I say,
I totally get that, because if you've written a book, then it helps you get other things, doesn't it? And not
even that, it's the time zone.
Yeah.
So for 4 weeks of my life, I don't have to work nights. I don't have to find experts. My time is my own. I know what I'm doing when I get up in the morning. Because one of the joys about living over here is obviously, and I'm still working much for the UK, is I don't know what's happening overnight. So I will send out 25 expert requests. I've sent out a job yesterday, which is a really easy job, publicising 15 companies. One of them has come back. And so every morning you're like, Groundhog Day, let's go and find another 14. And that so the benefit for me is not the money, it's having 4 weeks of just going, right, I know what I'm doing today. Nobody can piss me off. My day is structured. I'm not waking up to huge email of disappointment where no one will help. So there are advantages for me other than the money, because I earn more in those 4 weeks writing features than I do writing a book.
Yeah. So Helen, when you are having that, time when you're thinking, okay, I've got 4 weeks, I'm writing the book, presumably, do you then lose commissions? Because you are somebody who's obviously very popular with editors over in the UK. You have to say, no, sorry, I can't take on that commission, even if it's a well-paid one, because I'm writing the book. I mean, as a freelancer, I find that balance really difficult, to have to turn down work and feel that I'm going to annoy commissioners because I'm not available. How do you balance that?
I just have to be honest and just have to say I'm writing a book for 4 weeks. I'll be back in 4 weeks. But I've always been very good at saying no. I'm very good at setting boundaries. I'm very good at taking time off. So it's not unusual for me to take 4 weeks off to go on holiday, for example. So I think my editors are kind of used to it, in that and also they know I'm going to be back straight away. And so so to me it's just, I'm very good at saying no. So I suppose it's just an extension of that. And I just couldn't do it. I can't write a book in 4 weeks and take on other work and do both well. So without going mad.
Well done. I need to take a leaf out of your book. So we've it's 8:20. I wanted to know if any more questions from Penny or from Lisa or from Nicola that we haven't heard from Ursula. Anyone else got any different questions for Helen?
No one cares. No one loves me.
Any questions from Mike, the sole male representative of our audience? He's laughing. He's not asking.
No, he's watching cat memes.
I haven't. But it's been fascinating. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the broadcast, because but I just think it's been fascinating. And I also think that the last 10 minutes has been really intriguing as well. And I admire the fact that you can write a book in 4 weeks. It's pretty impressive. And just managing your time and managing people's expectations, I think that's very impressive, as well as the content of the book that you've written. So congratulations to you for doing that. For both of those, on both of those scores.
Moved to the other side of the world before there was decent internet, which is what I first did. I moved to New Zealand in 2001. And at that point, it wasn't, remote working just wasn't done. And so nobody had my phone number. Everybody had to wait because we couldn't work in any other way. And then it just changed my entire way of working. Before that, I was basically working for every newspaper in Britain and pretty much every magazine, and I was close to breakdown. And then I moved to New Zealand and I couldn't do it. So I then realized that pretty much everything can wait 12 hours. And I was still working for newspapers. Yeah. And that changed my entire, so even when I came back to the UK for 6 years, like that was 5 years ago now, I came back to the UK for 11 years ago. I don't even know what country I'm in any given time. I still didn't, nobody had my phone number, and it just changed all my boundaries because it just couldn't be any other way. And then I suddenly realized it didn't actually stop me doing any work, it didn't stop me getting any jobs, and it didn't stop me making money. And so I just did it. So yes, moved to the other side of the world for a while, and it teaches you boundaries.
So tell me, Helen, so what's on the horizon for you next? Have you already got a book lined up that you are planning on doing, or what's the subject that you'd like to tackle next?
Weirdly, I'm going, well, I now have 3 blogs, and I'm trying to create more passive income and what have you. So my plan at some point when I get around to doing it is actually go back into self-publishing for a bit, and try and get a whole load of books up on Amazon, just as sort of without as many words in them, and start to look into these things called blank books, which is basically where you get everybody else to write them. So they're like the sort of 365 ways to fill your day, and you basically give someone a prompt and then they fill stuff in. That's my aim, is to actually try and work out how to make more money with less work. So that's kind of where I'm going. Basically, when the pandemic hit here in Australia, they closed all of the health magazines overnight. I lost all of my clients overnight, pretty much. You wouldn't believe in the beginning of a pandemic that they would shut down. They shut down magazines, well, Women's Health, Good Health, Body and Soul, which was the big health supplement in the newspapers here, and a couple of other publications. And I just literally lost all my clients overnight. And I was like, okay. So that was when I started more thinking about blogging and sort of, as I say, passive income, and sort of started moving towards that for a bit. And then actually have gone a bit sideways in what I'm doing. I'm still covering science, but not just health anymore, because it was that definition of madness, trying to do the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same response. And I was just like, right, this isn't working anymore, but do something else. So yes, I'm writing some really interesting things at the moment that aren't health related, but are still very science led. So
interesting. Well, we look very much forward to seeing what they are as and when the time comes. Helen, did you want to just wrap up by mentioning anything, where people can get the book, and any other plugs, and then we'll take a wrap up.
Yes, well, I'll wave it at you. So there it is, backwards. So
let me
yeah,
get a screenshot of that. Hold it up again. That'd be great. That's it. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so the Macro Method in all good booksellers and on Amazon, obviously. It's published by Aster, and yeah.
How much is it in the UK?
It is £9.99.
A bargain. Excellent.
And I did find it in my local library here, which was very exciting, because I never see my books in the wild. And also it came out in the US, which again, I was happily Googling myself and found it on the Target website, which again was strangely exciting. But yeah,
brilliant. So that's great. Well done. It's a real success story to hear how you've pivoted, and as you say, all those challenges with COVID, and so the thoughts about what you might move into now. Very, very interesting. So unless there are any final questions, anyone's hand up, I'm going to draw the meeting to a close and just say thank you so much, Helen, for taking part and getting up so early in the morning and giving us all the information about the macro method, which I'm not good at maths, but I've got a 17-year-old son who's very good at maths, so maybe he can help me out with that. And maybe next time you see me, I'll be transformed.
Everyone with the maths, it's actually very simple when you break it down. It's actually only like 5 steps. And if you take them one by one, it's nowhere near as terrifying as seeing that equation, which is just like, what the hell does that mean? I don't even know what that means. So,
Excellent. Excellent. Well, now we've got a hotline to you anyway, so you'll be getting emails from us asking.
no, ask Angela. Just contact Angela.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Helen. That's lovely to meet you, and we'll have another one of these in about 3 to 4 months. So remember, anyone got any books coming out, just let us know, and if you'd like to be featured, just let us know too, and we'll get a list together for 3 to 4 months time and contact Tinder. So I hope that you all have a nice evening. It's thanks from me, Jacqui Thornton, and thanks for all your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Helen.
Thank you, Helen. It's great. It's really
See you
good.
all in person at some point in about 2 years when I'm allowed to leave the country again.
Absolutely.